Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Today's our first culture topic. If you're familiar with Instagram, Jay Doran, the Culture Man. So JAYDORAN underscore the Culture Man. Follow me on Instagram. If you're not following me, every few days a new culture topic is posted. And I am recording longer elaborations on these topics. So look out for these culture topics. Today's first culture topic is 3 ways to create a work culture that brings out the best employees. Why does it matter to have the best employees? Because when we invest in people, first of all, our expectation as an organization is that more value comes from that investment. Oh, that's common sense, right? If it costs $100,000 for a person to work on our team, the goal is that more than $100,000 of economic value is going to come out of that. Now, why would that be the case? Because simple math would tell us if that isn't the case over a period of time, eventually we're going to go out of business and then no one's going to have an opportunity. If we can't all, if more value can't come out of that investment, then there won't be anything to invest in the first place. Now, at the same time, if I'm because oftentimes these conversations will get relegated to the employer, what the employer wants, what the employer wants, and what the employee should be doing. At the same time, if I'm employed by an organization, I want a future. Why do I want a future? Because I want to be, maybe I have a family that I'm accountable for. Maybe I want a family that I'll be accountable for. Maybe I desire food and shelter. Like these simple things that we could easily overlook are inherently a part of the relationship between the employee and the employer. Both parties can benefit. So why it's important to get the best out of employees? Well, it's the right thing to do. I mean, we could argue why it's the right thing to do, but think about that. Imagine not getting the best out of employees. So if you have interest in having employees, you want the best out of them for the best interest of the organization staying in business and growing and being more successful, that's ultimately going to help everyone. So 3 ways to create a work culture that brings out the best employees. I'll tell you how to get the worst out of employees. The first thing would be don't listen to feedback. Don't listen. Think for everyone. Do it all yourself. Alienate people. Alienate your people. Don't include them. Don't include their ideas. Don't include their personalities. Don't care about them. Don't involve them in decision making. Now, all of that might sound crazy and ridiculous. Like, um, what do you mean, Jay? Why are you telling me not to listen? Because I want to make a point. Even though this sounds horrifying and this sounds like, oh, I would never do that. This is what we do. I've done it. I've done it not realizing I'm doing it. Now, why do we do it? Well, if I am like let's say I'm the founder of something, it's mine. This is my baby. Don't tell me how to feed my kid. Don't touch my kid. Don't hold my kid. I don't like the way you're holding my kid. What if you drop my kid? What if my kid dies? That degree of psychological neurosis, paranoia, attachment is akin to what it's like to be a leader. Even if you're not the founder, if you're a manager or some degree of subordinates, there's going to be a tension between delegating, let's say, permitting others to do what you once did. There's going to be a tension because part of our identity development is around our identity has a relationship with what it is that we do and how we do it and for how long we do it and for who we do it and why we do it. There's a tension in letting go, in delegating, in including others, because there's a risk in doing those things. The baby could fall. If you give me your baby to hold, I could drop it and it could die, and then you'll never have the opportunity to have it back. So don't listen. If we turn that around, how to get the best out of your employees, listen, ask questions, include, be open to the negative emotion that could arise with your judgments being questioned, with your values being questioned, even if like if the even if it's implicitly questioned, or it's, you know, basically it might be hard to have honest conversations with your subordinates because they might actually be right and they might see something you don't see. Their mere presence might shock you because you have to be able you have to be able to handle critical thought, critical not even just feedback, thought. Like, oh, everything I've been thinking about, planning about is just all wrong based on this conversation. And there's an attachment. So being aware that it may not be as common sense to listen to and include people in decision making to get the best out of their brains and their talents isn't common sense. It's common sense, but it isn't common practice necessarily because of the natural tensions that arise in growing and leading and identity and developing something in an idea. Another piece of advice I'd give for creating a work culture that brings out the best employees: expect in others what you don't do. So do as I say, not as I do. Do as I say, not as I do. Drive people like a master, and they do your bidding. Stay Maintain the power dynamic of your entitlement and their greater responsibility. If there are values in the company, they need to be living them. You don't necessarily have to live them. As long as, so if they're the core values of the organization, if you want to get the best out of your people, don't do everything I just said. Don't expect of them that what you aren't doing. Don't put the values on them, like, expect them to compensate, to catch your don't um be a hypocrite. Don't bask in the entitlement that comes with being in authority and influence and be able to make the ultimate decision. Don't betray yourself in that way. Don't hire somebody and then interact and engage with them in a way that they become demotivated and unproductive as a consequence of you being unmotivated and unproductive. Hiring someone or people and then not working is not going to solve your problems. The problems are never solved. Problems are a consequence of life. And if you're a business owner, you're in business because there are problems that you're solving. The goods and services that you're bringing to market are solving problems. That never ends. And ultimately, the job never ends. The work never ends. What we do changes if we're in that founder seat, chief executives. What is being done, the expectations are the context is constantly context constantly changing, but the idea of work, sacrifice and labor and involvement and engagement never ends. It can't, because it sets the tone for the culture. It can't ever end. Like, while you're working, work. Don't start a business if you're not going to finish it. Hiring yourself out of a job doesn't mean you don't have a job. It means you have new jobs to do. You have to create that job description. That's why you have advisors like myself to help you create that job description. Other brains you're bringing in that are also people that are being employed in varying capacities to help you think through vision, strategy, values, goals, etc., etc. The work never ends, though. How many founders that I see literally stop working, and then people convince them they shouldn't be working, and basically, if you're going to stop working and get therapy, sell your company and then get therapy. Don't get therapy and then stop working. Because what you're doing is you're destroying people's lives. It's the most narcissistic thing ever that our culture perpetuates. It is so self-centered to go and start a company and not finish it. Because now you have all these people's livelihoods waiting for you to literally just show up and work. But now, if you don't know what to do, it makes sense that you're not working. So hire people to help you figure out what to do. But that goes back to number one. If you're not listening, you're not going to actually hear the people around you that are smarter and more educated in their specific domain, which you hired them in the first place. You might think you're listening. And if you're not listening, but you think you're listening, that's the worst, because it's just, oh, it's them. It's not me. No, it's the negative emotion that's arising as you're interrelating with other people that are saying things that are so true, it hurts, so you can't hear them. So number two is you want to get the most, 3 ways to create a culture that brings out the most of the people. Engage, be responsible, do your job. If you don't know what your job is, figure it out. And if you don't know how to figure it out, hire the people that can be figured out. Here, I'll help you. I will. That's my calling. Let's figure out, what's your job? What does the organization need? What is the current business model? Why does it exist in the first place? How can we capitalize on its existence? What are we doing now that's working? What are we doing now that's not working? Who's a part of the team that can help? Who do we need on the team? Let's figure out the vision and the strategy and the value system, the philosophical premises, and let's put a plan together and then execute on the plan. I promise you, you're more likely to enjoy what you're doing. And if it's not about the money anymore, it's absolutely about what this is, because if it's not about the money, it's about purpose. Because with the lack of money and resources, there's no time to think. It's just responsibility, meaning we are responding to the accountability of the market, to the lack of resources. So it forces us to be able to respond. Once we're not accountable anymore, they make all the money. It's got to come from responsibility, because there's no accountability. That's the whole issue here. Once it's not, the founder is not accountable to the market. They've succeeded. They've outshot their goal. They're successful. There's no pressure. It has to come from a deeper sense of purpose, like the ability to sacrifice and be engaged and be responsible. And disengagement destroys culture, destroys value, destroys business, and destroys the employees' engagement, destroys it, just absolutely obliterates it. And in our culture today, everywhere we look, someone is trying to convince us not to work. We shouldn't work. We should feel guilty if we're working in our business. And that is all a bunch of hogwash. Partial truths, people. There's partial truths. Let's not confuse delegation with the obfuscation of responsibility. Woo! This is fun. We're going to do these culture topics all the time. Another way, and the last way to bring out the best people, put your best interests over the customers. If you are building your business and it's all about you and what you can get and the company can get and the customer after them, the company, put you and the company before the customers. It's funny, because in cultures, when oftentimes it become employees, it's all about the employees. The order really is customers. And if you want to look at employees, and it's customers and employees. Like if the customer is not the focus, we're in trouble. So if you put yourself first as ownership, and put the organization first, it's going to undermine the employee engagement, because, well, think about it. It becomes do as I say, not as I do. Because if we're focused on the customers and we're actually working towards their best interest, and our actions and our behavior, our actions and our words and our thoughts, the employees are going to see how we're engaged. Responsibility is modeled. So it's experienced through the senses. People see. It's the Maxwell's law of the picture. People do what people see. So the employees are watching the management thinking and talking and making decisions out of the best interest of the customers. So they're watching that service, they're watching that sacrifice, they're watching the values. When the organization becomes super inverted, where it's just worrying about itself, like that's where a lot of this employee stuff, being obsessed with employees, is actually um, it has an internal contradiction where it's actually I believe it's about control, not actually benefiting the employees. It's about the organization controlling the employees. It's basically catching a falling knife. It's forgotten. It's lost its identity. It's forgotten its purpose to solve the customers. It's become too employee oriented as a consequence of lacking vision, lacking strategy, lacking values, engagement with the customers as a consequence of disengaged management. It's become overly controlling of the employees, appeasing and entitling, and then it's resentful of them, wanting to control their outputs. And it's a consequence of management missing out on the forest for the trees, or what have you, forgetting about the customers. So if you want to actually get the best out of your employees, you have to get the best out of your customers. It means you have to be focused on solving the customers' problems, building a relationship with the customers, serving and living for the customers. The employees are going to model that behavior, because accountability is given in speech and taken in force. It's like it's communicated through words, and then it's um, expressed or proven in actions. So somebody quits because they're done in the relationship, they're done in the company, or you fire someone. Hey, you're out. We've said, we've asked you to improve, and we've done everything we can to make that a possibility, and it hasn't changed. So we have to bring someone else in. That's an act of accountability on that person, and that shows others in the organization that you're serious about what it is you're doing. Disengaged management does not hold anyone accountable, because a disengaged management is irresponsible. They're not telling the truth. They're not engaged. They're likely not working with customers. They've likely forgotten why they exist, and they can get away with it. So those are the three ways to get the most. I know I said them backwards at first to make a point. As Munger would say, invert, always invert. Three ways to get the most out of your people, to create a work culture that brings out the employees. Don't listen. Expect others to do what you're not doing, and care more about yourself than the customer. So let's do the opposites. Listen, and include people and get the best out of their brain power and their time by having those honest conversations, being aware of your own reactivity that could be prevalent. Be responsible, be engaged, figure out what your job description is and get it done, and love, find meaning in your work, and people will find meaning in theirs. And be customer oriented first, and the people will follow. The shareholders will help you. Shareholders help you with the customer. Employees help you with the customer. Caring about the customer, you might genuinely not. And you could care about yourself more than the customer, but you can't act that way, right? That's the selfish gene. I'm doing culture. I am curious about culture. I love the conversations and thinking about it. I have selfish, self-oriented goals: financial, social, educational. There are rooms that I want to be in, I'm not yet invited to. There are things that I want, I can't yet attain. There are experiences I'd like to experience, I can't yet do. And myself, my wife, my life partner, we are working together to achieve things that we share in our current identity and our idealized identity that we'd like to actualize. And that gives us energy. It's like to sacrifice. It becomes meaningful and enjoyable, although it's paradoxically full of suffering. There's more to say, but I should keep this short. Every so often, you're going to see a culture topic. This is culture topic 1, 3 ways to create a work culture that brings out the best employees. Follow me on Instagram, Jay Doran _ the culture man. And we keep putting these out. Listen, engage, be responsible, serve your customers. We'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Leave us a review, please.